welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here for another interview today in the world of Gene Keys and Gene Keys guides. My name is Matthew Ashdown. I'm a Gene Keys guide and just loving these conversations that I'm having with all these different folks in the Gene Keys community. Some Gene Keys guides, some of our Gene Keys ambassadors, people who've been living and breathing this transition and continue to share it with the world in their own unique way. And so today I'm very honored to have a good friend and co-Gene Keys guide, that's the right word, Maria Hoffman. And some of you may recognize Maria if you've joined myself and her in our hosting of the Venus Sequence community calls. That's how we really got to know each other, and we've had many good conversations and many synchronicities. And so was loving bringing her here to this space today so we can explore the wisdom that is so naturally emanates from her and to explore some of the gene keys that are alive for her at this time. You know, many of us are working with the Venus deep dive right now. So this is our core wound, our core essence. So it's a big month. And Maria's been sitting with this for many years now. And so it'll be great to have some of her reflections. But I'm going to let Maria just talk briefly about herself for a moment or two, and just to say where you are and if there's anything else that you wanted to add in terms of your work with the Gene Keys guides. And yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. I'm just smiling. I agree. It was a very fun and playful experience to do the Venus hosting together. Very special to be like on the other side of the retreat a little bit. So I was very happy to be able to do that experience. Yes, I've been traveling with the Gene Keys for some years, and I really feel what you said there about living and breathing them. Since the day I, pulled out my free profile and just cried, which I did, because it was that beautiful permission to be me. That's how I felt when I read these beautiful words, and just for my inner skeptic compared with my friends, what she read, and that was her. And it was so obvious that hers was hers and mine was mine. So that was my first encounter with the Gene Keys, and I just knew that it was that perfect timing for me to not only study it for myself, but also when they came out with the guides program, for me was just obvious to do that. It marries perfectly with my other works that I'm doing and other teachings I study, which is, for example, I've been studying A Course in Miracles for many years, and also now I'm studying A Course in Love. Also nonviolent communication. And I've always been very passionate about energetic, archetypical work. And for me, it's been voice dialogue and shadow work, because there you work with inner personalities. So for me, when I met the Gene Keys, like each and every key had their own archetype. And coming from voice dialogue, where you actually practice being the aware ego, which is in some way the gift imbibed in the Siddhi, if you will, because it's the aware ego. You're still acting from ego parts, like in the gift side of it, but you do have that connection to the Siddhi. You feel it. You can really feel it. But from that space, you actually embrace the different selves, which for me can be the same procedure as embracing the shadow. So it's about experiencing the shadows as well, listening to them, understanding them, and for me, using nonviolent communication to understand what are their needs when they're screaming and yelling, and maybe when I'm myself, I am reacting to something. It's to really be still and do that pause that we talk about in the Gene Keys of Richard, like always comes back to standing in that pause and just listen to my inner self, for example, or when I'm working with a client, listen to the client's selves that are talking. Who is talking? What do they want? What do they need? What are they longing for? Or what are their sorrows? So for me, the Gene Keys just came in as that, yeah, the embracement of it all in some ways. So I can use the other things that I shared very freely. And I love those words that Elijah talks about, archetypical acupuncture. That's it, you know. So yeah, apart from that, I'm in Sweden. I don't know if you said that. That's where I live, and I also host open calls in Swedish. So if anyone is interested, just contact me. It's not up yet on the webpage, unfortunately, but I hope it will be out. We've been doing it for 6 months now. And that's the other passion that I have. It's the groups, to be in that sharing space and the magic when we just, I want to say experience each other. For me, that's it. When we listen from our hearts, when we do the values that we share, you know, in the open calls, when we listen to someone from those values, it's impossible for love or light or magic to not enter. And that's for me the Course in Miracles and A Course in Love. It's there, you know, you just open up and it's there. So I think that's a good beginning, at least.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a good beginning. And I love how you brought in the different practices that you've woven together. And, you know, I'm always looking at that too. There's the threads that it's so easy for people to pick apart what's different and what might be better. But I love it when it's like, this is the, you know, these many different pathways and these, I love that term too, the archetypical acupuncture. It's a little bit of a tongue twister at first, but you know, and how your these different things that you've experienced and worked with in the past are now being drawn up. And that's something I hope that other people see as they, you know, come into this Gene Keys work too, that everything that they brought from their past into this space, to be able to see that congruency, to see how they support one another. And because I've too have worked with the Course in Miracles, and probably not to the depth that you have, but it's been a great teaching and support in my life in many ways. And to see the threads that weave between the wisdom of the Gene Keys and the wisdom of the Course in Miracles. And so, yeah, to be able to so if anybody else in the Gene Keys world is, oh, and I do meet a number of people in the Gene Keys world, it's like, oh yeah, that's also something I work with. So that's, again, one of the reasons we're doing this, is so that people can begin to connect with others who might have that similar outlook and perspective and pathway to our fractals. So yeah,
exactly.
It's our different ways. It's like when Richard went to Russia, and you know, he shares the story somewhere. I can't remember where it was that he shared it, but basically he went to Russia. Everyone's, you know, he doesn't speak Russian fluently. I don't think it's even, I think he had a translator there, but he realized it was just like the, you know, the Gene Keys is basically a language of its own that brings people together to experience love. And that it's just a cloak that we've adorned together to bring us the experience that people might have in different traditions and in other different cultures in different ways. And so, yeah, it's very exciting like that. And in a way for me too, as I'm hearing you speaking, it's actually kind of bringing alive one of the Gene Keys that we were going to explore today, which is, we are in this month where many of us are exploring our core in the Gene Keys, in the Venus sequence. And so I thought it might be great support, like how Maria works with her core, this core essence, this core Gene Key, and also because I believe it shows up elsewhere in your chart too. And so even if you don't have this gene key, and we'll let you know which one that is in a moment, like to give people the anticipation, right? It's like the anticipation.
That's my
Which
IQ.
gene key is it? Which gene key is it? We'll get there. But it's like, in listening to Maria as you share about your own journey through this exploration of your Venus deep dive, I hope that it offers, I know that it will offer other people listening, whether you have this gene key in your chart or not. So we'll keep the suspense no more. The gene key that you're working with is the 32nd gene key. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I actually could see it when you reflected it, Matthew, when you said like, yeah, it's weaving in the different teachings. And because the 32nd, it's the shadow of failure and the gift of preservation and the city of veneration. And this one has been difficult for me to grasp. At one point, I don't remember if it was like last time I did the Venus or when it was, I really got irritated. I was listening to the audio from Richard, and he talks there about, I think it's in this one, planting trees, isn't it? Yeah. I was like, but I don't get it. I don't get what trees. I was really going mental. And that's part of it for me, knowing when I'm going mental. That's when I'm not getting it because I'm not getting anything mentally in some way. I loved when you reflected it back. Yeah, you're right. That is actually preservation. I didn't see that. So for me, the Gene Keys journey has been so different depending on the spheres and on the keys. They open up to me very differently. Some takes long. And when I'm talking about open up, it's not that, okay, now I read it and now I know it, now I can memorize the words, because I have a wonderful brain. I don't memorize the words. So I really need to experience it over and over and over. But there is this like initiation into the keys for me. Like, I know some of the keys I couldn't, I wasn't allowed in. It's more about them opening up to me than me opening up them. That's how I experience it. And some keys, I don't remember which one it was now, it wouldn't let me in until I actually accidentally, by coincidence, fell over another key, which was actually, it's like, a door before another door. So I needed to open that door before I could. And when I had opened that key, I just, and the other opened. So this 32nd key, it has been, it's my core wound. It has been one of those that has been difficult for me to see. And maybe it's because it's its nature as being the core wound and the vocation. I mean, but when I feel it, when I see it, I actually also see why it's my vocation. It's so clear when it's clear, And my SQ, because when we do the Venus, we travel downwards, and the SQ is contemplated before the vocation and the core. And my SQ, it's the 57, the gentle wind with intuition. So for me, they're very related also because the intuition is part in the hexagram of the 32nd key together with the thunder. So, and that's 57 for me. It's the key I really need to just experience. I cannot mentally, it doesn't feel anything when I think about it. I really love experiencing it. But today that's what I wanted to share with you before. Today I had this beautiful experience with the 30-second, because I have been thinking about, not because I don't understand it. That's sometimes I don't understand this. I don't understand this key. How is this key? And that's when I'm trying to think about it. And today I had the experience because Richard talks about it being about grafting. Is that the word? Yeah. So you have this rootstock, and then it's about knowing what to keep, and the programming partner is about detachment. So it's about knowing what to keep and what to, I think he used discard. Like you take it off and you put it in the compost or something, and what to graft. And for the first time, not for, I don't know, maybe I've experienced it before, but like I said, I'm an easy forgetter. That's why it's so wonderful. I can experience things many times. But today I had this clarity around it that I am the rootstock. I could really feel I am the rootstock, because I could see my whole life, how things like grew out like these beautiful branches. And then sometimes there's the branch, that has dried off. Like when you have a beautiful tree, there's these dry branches. And the moment you don't know if it's dead or alive, so you don't know if to cut it or not. And I realized that failure for me was when I identify with the branches. Like, for example, a relationship. For me, when I was married and I have 2 children, and I divorced 7 years ago. And that for me was like this core family to, I don't know what words to use, but to take apart the core family, which was my dying desire as a child. I come from a background with a lot of codependency, and my parents were, drinking a lot, and it was really chaos when I grew up. So I had invested everything into this core family. So that could have felt like a failure if I do my identity around it, that I need to preserve the core family. But when I just look at, and the rootstock is love, that's how I experience it. So when I just look at, okay, this was this beautiful branch, that relationship with that man, and we got 2 children. I mean, those are still attached to this loving tree that I am. And that was the first time that I could really understand how and what it meant. Because also my experience is that we know these things, we live them. It's just that we haven't seen it. So for me, the Gene Keys experience is just about understanding and witnessing reality and seeing reality clearly. So that was a beautiful experience for me today. I was like, I am the rootstock,
Yeah, I like that. And I like too as well sometimes where this is the nature of the transmission. It's like, really need you to remember this when you go on to that talk with Matthew today. So we're giving you this morning, so it's nice and fresh, so that it's right there. I can relate to that absolutely. It's and I love that. Yeah, it's like my teacher who talks about we are the tree of life, and so you really describe that so beautifully in that contemplation. And this 30-second gene key, you talked about family there, and that identification with that. And I feel like this is such a this shadow of failure is such a big one within our human family, as the whole of humanity, really, because it goes right into the deepest, the failure of our species. And then there's also that, what I love with veneration to me is that recognizing the beauty within the lineage, the work, the rootstock. Like you said, it's like, this is what has come forward from the family that I will continue to nurture and water these seeds. And these ones, well, that maybe it's time to cut that root off. So I really heard that in your exploration there. And what's kind of coming alive for me, a lot's coming alive for me in just that, in that space. But you were talking about how as we move into the core, I love that. It's like, noticing when we're mental, right? When we go up into the head about this. And this is like, when we're talking about the core, it's an unconscious key, right? It's based on the time before we were born. We were still in our mother's womb. So a lot of times I find when working one-on-one with people is they can't connect to that wound necessarily mentally. And so it's really about this allowing ourselves to feel it, the wound, to go right into it. And can I ask what line number you are there? You're 32 line.
I'm a line number 1.
So you're line 1 there.
1.
So
yeah, so it's the repression.
Yeah. So maybe could you speak to this line 1 theme and the shadow of repression, and also, or the wound of repression, and how that relates to this shadow of failure for you in your lived experience? You've touched on it a little bit already, I feel. So but I'm wondering if there's anything more that you can speak to in terms of that line 1 in particular. Or, it could also be, it's like this gift that's been repressed, this gift of preservation that you are bringing alive, this city of veneration that is now, I'm hearing it, you've given it a voice. So don't feel like you have to explore that, but whatever might be coming alive for you in this contemplation right now.
Yeah, I believe, like you say, it's about also the repression of the gift or the city. And I just wanted to add about the veneration, how I experienced, because when I experienced so strongly, I am the rootstock. I could also feel like these branches that were, they didn't belong to my energy field anymore, because it's, when it's like the energy inside us evolves or transforms. It's just as simple as that. I mean, but I could feel such veneration also for those branches or those energies or everything I like put to rest or put down in the ground. And I have also seen how things I have let go of is their own beautiful trees when I'm not attached to them anymore. And that's coming from also leaving my codependency. That's one of my other passions. But so I've really felt that veneration of, it's so tender, it's like holding it in your hands and like loving it all the way, and then putting it back into the soil of earth. And then it's easier. It can become easy to see the beauty of it on its own. So
All right, thank you. Everybody, we just had a slight pause in there because we were getting a little interference in bandwidth, but it gave us an opportunity to have a quick reconnect as well, and fun little conversation. So we're going to kind of riff off of that. But I loved what you were sharing, Maria, as we were ending your little share there. But what you were really speaking to that I feel is so important is veneration of the shadow, because this to me is some of the really big work in the Gene Keys, is that the shadow, the city includes the shadow and the gift. And so we are bringing this, we're doing this work so that we might find a deeper understanding of ourselves and the nature of shadow and light and all of that. But you spoke to this so beautifully, and I just wondered if there was anything from your experiences that you might like to share in terms of this, like truly embracing the shadow in your journey?
Yeah, I think you said it so beautifully. The Siddhi, it venerates the shadow. It doesn't make a difference. The Siddhi always, like universal love, it's universal. It's all encompassing. The Siddhi doesn't make a difference between the shadow and the gift. It's just about embracing life, embracing the whole. And for me, I feel these archetypes so vivid inside me. I really feel them like, buddies in a way. And failure, uh, I love her. For me, it's a her. Some of them are guys, and some of them are animals, and some of them are mythical animals or whatever, dragons and fun stuff. As a 5-1 profile, I have some dragons. Uh, but this beautiful failure, she is so scared of doing the wrong thing. you know she's so scared of saying the wrong thing, of choosing the wrong thing. And here I feel is that part of the 32nd, that 57, it's wind and thunder. That's how it's built up. And for me, that's the 57 with this hesitation. But what if I do like this? Is that a wrong decision? No, no, that's that. Oh. So that I can feel so strongly in my body. And for me, it's like she's always here with me. She's always welcome. And that for me makes me humble. That for me is being close to my own vulnerability. That for me is what creates safe spaces between us humans. To have my vulnerability, to have this Gene Keys work for me is about opening the space of my vulnerability bigger and bigger and bigger. And that for me is how I also can embrace others, because it's so easy to fool ourselves thinking, like universal love, for example, thinking, yeah, I love everyone, I love you, and I'm supposed to love that one. And it can be an escape as well. But my experience is I cannot feel that the open love, the love that comes from here. I reference here all the time, but the love that comes from, it's almost, it's not neutral, but there is it's just an openness for me, where I can feel another without rejection or without needing to put something in between us. So for me, when I need to put something between us, that's where I know, okay, this is something I haven't embraced inside myself. But I think it's easy, and I love if someone hasn't seen it yet, Richard is doing this on spiritual ego. There's this YouTube clip, and I love it because I just giggle. There's so many. Yeah, I have done that. Yeah, I've done it. I can do that. I just love it. So for me, it's about the shadows is also what keeps us vulnerable and open. If we think we should get rid of them, then I'm not whole. And I call them my shadow children, because for me, they are children. They just don't know. And this is also from nonviolent communication, where Marshall Rosenberg, he says the only thing we ever say is thank you or please. And that means either my needs are met and I'm comfortable and I'm happy and I can just celebrate that. And then I say thank you. And if they're not, when I'm screaming, when I'm angry, when I'm upset, when I'm displaying what people experience as shadow behavior, I'm actually saying, please, please help me. Please see, please help me home to my own heart. I get passionate now. I will. stop. But it's such a passion for me, this shadow work that we do in the Gene Keys. And it's so important that we understand, embrace the shadow, embrace it.
I love that, and I love the passion. So keep it going. But yeah, it's this, no, because I'm totally with you there. It's like when we can have a conversation about shadow, and there's literally no constriction, no tension, no, there's that complete freedom. Then we've done this. But like you said, it's like we meet this in the wholeness of life, and so there's this natural release of the gifts and cities. It's not about I should be in this city or I should be that. I should love everyone, like you said. So I love that working. I think I share a lot of those same ideals that you're speaking to there, because when we move out into the world, it's because otherwise, and you would know this too when you look at that 30-second gene key, is if it doesn't do that, it ends up isolating itself, because it's like it views everybody else as a failure to live up to the city or something like that, right? And it's like, how many of us on our spiritual journeys have felt like that at times, that we failed to live up to these expectations? And actually, this brings in the perfect weaving here, if I might go here, is that what I think is interesting, and that might speak to others as well, and help support others in their contemplations, is that your core gene key is also the same as your radiance. And also, because it popped into my head when I was just reflecting on what you shared there, is that the 42nd gene key is your purpose. And the purpose is kind of what you've spoken to there. It's like putting these expectations on ourselves to be a certain way. The shadow of the 42 is expectations, whereas there's this celebration of all of it. As the city celebrates all of it. It celebrates the seeming failures, the seeming successes, the shadows. It celebrates it all. But to bring that all together is like, for those people here who are listening, I'm sure that they're like, I've got the same, because I have the same gene key in my radiance as I have in my SQ. And that's led me to sort of certain contemplations here. And I'm wondering if there's anything that you might have to offer people in terms of, firstly, your purpose and your core are programming partners. They're complete opposites in the mandala. And so I'm wondering if there's anything that you might speak to in that, if it wasn't too jumbled a mess for you to unwind that I just threw at you.
No, absolutely. I love what you said. I really love what you said. It's this, it becomes this celebration, celebrating all of it. And I think you said it so good. I don't know what to add. I really loved what you said. And I honestly couldn't say how is it to have the programming partner in my purpose, and because I have never not had it, as I remember. So I think someone who doesn't have it is better. I don't know how to say, but
that's a good way of putting it. I get what you're saying there. Absolutely. And I think that's the nature of this work too, isn't it? It's like, oh man, this has always been how I've been. So yes, give me somebody who has the opposites. Yeah.
But it's also for me that it's that's the fun part of it and the beauty of it. And I see that in people, both in the groups that I join and the groups I'm hosting, and also on one-on-ones, this amazing release when we realize this is not only how I'm supposed to be, no, not how I'm allowed to be, this is how I'm supposed to be. And we grow up with so many, like you said, expectations and prejudges this, like beliefs on how we should be and comparison. And that for me has been a very big part of my journey to just experience being me. Yeah. I don't think that answered your question, but I think you
But
said
no,
such
I
a
think
good.
it does though, because you spoke to exactly your experience of it, and that's what's important with this work with the gene keys. Is there's no set experience of like, oh, if your radiance is here and your purpose is here, or sorry, your core is here, and then they're both the same. That means this. You know, it's like it's just we're cracking open that contemplation, but your experience of it is everyone's experience of it is so unique. You can have two people with the same chart and experience life in very different ways that way. So no, it was I think it was perfect reflection. Thank you. And actually, as you were sharing, it's so interesting because again, you know, getting what we need before coming into these things. If I could share a little story from my own experience with the 32 in the last little while, is that I just had an aunt who passed away, and my efforts to go out to see her before she passed were just coming to naught. And it was because there was it was like the weather colluded against us. And there was just all these series of things. And so, you know, I caught myself in this feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm failing to get out there. I'm failing my family. I'm failing my lineage, right? There was this kind of this awareness going on within me. And then it turned out I wasn't able to make it to her funeral because of where it was. And so again, it was kind of creeping in for me myself. And this was only about 4 or 5 days ago. Well, on Sunday, which was just a couple of days ago, I ended up going to my wife. She's a spiritualist minister, and so she has a center where we go to, and I haven't been to it for a while. And in spiritualism, you know, part of what they are working with is the mediums who are talking to those who crossed over. And the medium was a guest medium, and she stands up and she says, "Oh, I've got an aunt here." I'm like, "Oh, interesting. I just had an aunt pass away a few days ago." And she then began to list off all this evidence. And it was, to me, it's like I was just blown away by her accuracy because, and so I was putting my hand up, and eventually she came to me, right? After other people couldn't take it all. And, you know, this message that basically came through was, it could have been right from God versus coming from her, was just like, you know, if I'd wanted you there, don't you think I would have made it possible for you to be there? Right? It's like, and so, you know, there was this sense of, not that she was controlling that in her human form or anything like that, but it's that sense of like what you said. It's like, if it was going to play out any other way, it would have done. And to view that and to see what other things emerged out of that space because I thought I was failing to support her or what have you. And so there was just this deep sense of knowing that came through that of yeah, if it was going to play out any other way, it would have done. And so to be able to see, you know, the seeming failures in my life as like Richard says in that 30-second gene key, it's like our only true failure is to be disconnected from life. Because when we're truly connected, even what seems like a failure, we can recognize as being connected to the whole, woven into the whole in some way. And so in my, probably in the grief and the guilt that I was feeling, I wasn't in that connectedness. But over time, and then with that thing at the weekend, it kind of really landed for me. And I had a profound healing experience as a result of it, just coming into that awareness. And it's like you said, intellectually, I can get that stuff and repeat that stuff when I'm in my clarity. But I was going through this loss and this transition in my life of somebody that was very close to me. And again, knowing that there's an afterlife too. I know that thing, but there is this embracing of this human experience. And so not to just like, oh, there is no such thing as failure, but to really recognize what that was about and to see that and to experience that and to learn from it so that I can graft something moving forward. So yeah, I just felt like I wanted to I was inspired to share that just from my own experience of that recently because I am definitely somebody who has beaten myself up for failures in life in the past. And my work with the Gene Keys has really opened it up to that, a greater sense of gentleness and patience with myself. But to be able to see how even these seeming failures and even the successes aren't because Matthew's ego mind has done something special and made it's like even that fits in to a bigger circle than we're aware of at a conscious level. And to me, that's so much of the beauty of this message that comes through this 30-second Gene Key. And so you just in your sharing there, it was kind of, I was like, oh, okay, I feel like I just wanted to share something around that. So I wanted to, we've got a few more minutes here and I want to draw forth more of your wisdom. But in light of some of what we've been talking about here today, if you're working with somebody and they're coming into either for one-on-one sessions with you or they're just coming into your world in the arena of Gene Keys and they're here in this Venus deep dive and we're in this deep aspect of our being, what were some of the things that you might offer to somebody who's contemplating their core wound that is getting mental? What practices do you work or use in your life that bring you back into the fullness of the moment?
I loved your sharing, Matthew. Thank you. So beautiful story, and exactly how you said, that's the whole tree, the whole growth there. You shared. Thank you so much for that beautiful story. And I think you described it so well, because it's noticing when am I feel it like it's like ice skating. You have the ocean and the feelings and life, but sometimes it's frozen, when we are afraid, the fear. So we ice skate over it, like, no, there's no fear. And especially in spiritual communities, like, no, there's only love. I know there's only love, but still my body doesn't experience every nook and corner as love. My body still experiences some places as fear, some places as ice, so I need to fill up those spaces with light or love. And what you shared, for me, that's the beauty. That's exactly what you did. Because you could have said, no, there's no failure. There's only love. There's only God. Everything is fine. But you felt in your body, here is something. Here is failure. I feel the failure. So that pause. So if I'm working with someone, that's exactly how I work with them and myself. To allow myself to notice, firstly, and I mean, if you feel it, you feel the difference of ice and flow. So when it's not flowing, it's not flowing. And instead of judging it, it's just, oh, here's a shadow child that needs caring. Or here's a part of my inner room that is not lit up yet. So that's, for me, makes it non-judgmental. It's just what I'm here to do. To love those children or to light up that darkness. And in your story was so beautiful because you did do that pause, you noticed. And sometimes we get help from the outside, like a medium in this, like pointing it towards you, and you feel that healing inside. And I think when we work with clients, both you and me, that's what we do. We help the person to pause in those moments, because we feel when it's frozen or not. We feel when there's life flowing, or if there's wait a minute, here's something. And then gently we can just, whether it's ourselves or another, we can just help them, guide them. That's being a guide for me, guiding someone towards that dark space. Is it okay if we go here? And to have that gentleness always. Is it okay if we go here and just light it up a little bit? And maybe first time is just, opening a little door and noticing, okay, I don't want to open it today. Fine, then we don't. but we know it's there. So it's having that gentleness, working with others and myself to be okay with, I don't want to go here today. I don't want to, I'm not ready to open that today. And hold myself in that gentleness, and that's okay, Maria, you know. But I loved your story, and I think that's exactly how I work with myself and others. That gentleness and bringing awareness, that for me is the light. Awareness and love.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And absolutely, it's that, it's that what you were talking to there about the fear in the body, right? It's like, because we're here to embody these spiritual truths, and yet we are also, I've got that, like I said, I got the 49th gene key in my SQ, and one of the things he says in there is like, there's a lot of ugliness that's got to come out of that gene key, right? And so it's like it's got, and so it's just to allow that and recognize it is not personal. And I think that's a big part of it as well, when when we see these, when we witness these fears that the body is kind of bringing our attention to be able to presence it, to not react to it. There's that, like, I always have people imagine, like, if this fear was coming from a 5-year-old child, you wouldn't just push it away and call it scared and mock it, and say it was unspiritual and all that stuff. You would sit with it, you would presence with it, and then you would ask it what it's safe to share right now. Like you said, that just kind of that noticing it. So that feels really, I feel that's so important. And especially in this tender time that we're approaching the core, this not expecting, again, not expecting ourselves to just be like, I'm going to crack this open and I'm going to grab the grail today. It's like, you know what, there's a part of me that's not ready to open this yet. And again, not knowing where that not ready to open it yet, maybe meaning that there's something in the fractal as well. Like with all these other people you're engaging with, that there's something, because there's this natural flowering in its own time, versus, you said this at the very beginning, you know, trying to crack it open ourselves and feeling like a failure because we've not been able to do it, versus the natural blossoming. We don't stand over a plant and say, damn it, grow faster, right? We just we give it that patience and tenderness. And sometimes we give that patience and tenderness to a plant more so than we do to ourselves. So thank you for that. I feel that that's such an important piece, is that, like you said, it doesn't make us any less spiritual if we're acknowledging the fear that the body is in the process of releasing. And for anybody who works with human design, if you've got an undefined spleen, then and if you don't know what an undefined spleen is, it's not the physiological spleen in your body, but it's like you can be very receptive to the fears in your surroundings, and that's coming at you as a way to be able to support, and ultimately it can be a way to support and guide others. But if we're reacting to that all the time, then it just causes causes more disturbances. So I think such a valuable share there. I feel the wisdom of the 32 really coming through you, and your purpose sphere of this 42nd gene key. Like, you've made it very clear to me that there's this lightness of being about how you approach all of this. And so when people are working with you, they've got that, I would feel very safe. And I think you and I have had many conversations, and we've opened up, and it's been really profound in that way, to be able to have that space where you can feel safe to be able to share from that space without feeling like you're going to be judged for being, not in the city or something like that. It's like the shadow is what is it? The seed, the fruit, sorry, the seed, the flower, and the fruit. That's Richard's comparison, right? So the shadow is the seed. So it's that seed is looking to birth into something, but the seed needs watering first. And so that flowering that occurs over time. There's so many more things I know we could talk about here. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that you'd love to, just any kind of flash of inspiration you'd love to leave people with today as they're contemplating their work with the gene keys, maybe something that's really impacted you more than other aspects of the gene keys. as you've journeyed through it?
Yeah, I kind of want to roll into what you shared there, about the seed and the gift and the city, because that's how I feel them now. Like the seed knows it's the city. So it's like, but it's like what I shared about the nonviolent communication, but it's screaming, please, please help me to grow up to that beauty I know. And also it feels the pain of not being there yet. So I love what you share there, our wish to be in the city, or our longing, or our grasping, or whatever it can be, like, or pretending, fake it till you make it, or whatever, But for me, there's a love, um, a tenderness around that, and um, a softness for me about that as well. To not even judge my own spiritual ego, if you will, because I understand her. She knows what she can be, the shadow. So for me, when I study the gene keys, when I read the book, for example, when I read the section of the shadow, it's like I hear its longing, its scream, or it's because it's painful to know your potential, but not knowing how to live it. So that's, I think, is, yeah, compassion. Compassion is, I think, the word I want to use to wrap it up. To have compassion for those parts in us and in each other that are maybe knowing their potential, but not knowing how to express it.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, because how many of you are coming to the gene keys and it's like, yeah, I can see this. I can feel everything that Maria just said there. I can feel my potential. Yes, yes, I see that in my chart. Oh my gosh. Yes, I've had that reflected to me. A medium, a psychic. Somebody said that to me, and and so there's all of that. So thank you. I just really appreciate that I think it's a great final contemplation for us all. And for me, it also comes back to that allow, accept, embrace, the simplicity of allow, accept, embrace. So thank you so much, Maria. We could talk for another hour, I'm sure, and we'll have you on again, I'm sure, because I love having our conversations. I just really appreciate you brought to me, you were a living, breathing example of this 30-second gene key. And maybe that's because you have it as both your radiance and your core and your vocation,
Maybe.
right? It's just, and you just brought such a beautiful teaching through that I was so very full of compassion. And I know people listening would have felt that and experienced that. So for anybody who's wanting to reach out, Maria's website is down below. You can find her in the Gene Keys Guides community. There's also the link to where you can sign up for the Swedish calls if you want to join her for those open Swedish calls, which she's been working for the last few months and will continue to grow as the Gene Keys communities, the branches continue to seed out into the world as the fruits continue to blossom. So I want to thank you again, Maria, and thank you for your kids for giving us the time together as well. I know the sacrifice.
And the bandwidth.
Yeah, the sacrifices they had to make on their computer time for us to have this conversation. So I really appreciate that from them. And thank you to everybody who's watching and listening. We'll continue to be meeting and interviewing guides in the Gene Keys community over these next, well, as long as I can keep them coming. I've got a long lineup of names now, and we'll be continuing to bring them to the world. So thank you, everybody, and have a beautiful week. Enjoy, or maybe enjoy is the wrong word. May you seed this compassion in your journey into this core sphere this month. We've got a whole month with this core sphere, and I completely agree with Maria when she says that this compassion for ourselves in this journey is a vital energy. So thank you, everybody.